Going to begin in Mercer County tonight, where some people are still in the early stages of rebuilding their lives after a flash flooding event last week. As our Austin Harmon reports, there's still anger and worry on the minds of the families hit hard by last week's high water.
Brenda Clark and other people who were hit hard by the flash floodings in Bluewell last week are still dealing with life after the flood. It's left them without things they need that were either washed away or water damaged beyond repair. Even though the water went down, their frustrations continue to rise to the point where they just want this behind them.
I think that they probably will be moving from this area.
Clark is among others here who point to the drainage system as the root cause of the flood. A neighbor says it's not the first time that the system was overwhelmed by rainwater.
For the last 9 years, I've owned a business, a detail shop here in Bluewell, and every time it rains real hard, we get major flooding.
Sora feels the state is to blame.
What I've been told and what I've seen, the state came in behind some of the landowners and put small culvert pipes in.
Keith Gano, the county's emergency management director, agrees. He tells WVVA the culverts in question need a second look because they may be ravaged by time.
They're all old, I'm sure. And I would be willing to guess that a lot of those are probably either undersized because they were put in there years ago, put a culvert here on this low spot. It needs to be of whatever size to be able to carry the capacity in a flooding event.
Gano plans a visit to the West Virginia Department of Highways office to check their maps of the culvert system in Bluewell. He says it's the first step to find a solution to the flooding in Bluewell.
And coming up with the fix and maybe the potential causes of some of the issues is kind of what I'm looking at, but it's going to take more than just me.
For resident Brenda Clark and her neighbors, the hope is for a solution that comes sooner than later. Certainly before the next heavy rainfalls.
I just wish they could get the problem fixed so people wouldn't have to move out of their homes.
Here for you in Bluewell, Austin Harmon, WVVA News.
Thank you for that report, Austin. Gano says that he understands the flood victims' frustration, but he plans to work as fast as he can to finish his research into the culvert system there in Bluewell. And in the meantime, he's urging everyone to remain weather aware when there are serious weather conditions in the forecast, no matter where you live in Mercer.